A very good evening and thank you all for joining us here on KTN News. It's such an honor having you watch the channel. Welcome to Friday Briefing. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. And of course, Betty Kyalo did say her vows last Friday and now she is on her honeymoon. So this brings me back over here. But well, on the show today, we've got quite an interesting show for you. Have you been struggling with weight? Have you been having a busy body and now are thinking twice on how exactly you should go about that? Our guest anchor on the show today, Jen Mukami, is here to tell us what we don't know about how to go about that weight. And of course, a number of bloggers have been going about this, but I think we're now going to put things into perspective. She is a wellness expert, or do we say a wellness coach? And well, here she is. She's joining us in studio. She's one of Africa's leading health and wellness experts, but she's also going to be getting into her seats, and we're going to see if she can do her job even better. But first, let's take a look at the highlights and get you updated on what's making news across the East African region.
I personally believe that William Ruto was actually innocent.
Sisi tunataka watu waende wapeane ushahidi pale Hague, pahali ambaye hiyo kesi itakatiwa.
The new game in town, back and forth on who exactly sent Ruto to The Hague. Plus, missing NYS millions, Director General quizzed by EACC officials.
We have confidence with the President in the agenda that you have for our region.
I hear that some people are worried that some people can cause violence in the elections. Nobody will cause violence. Uganda is long past that type of nonsense. Also
coming up, 53 years later, Museveni's grip on power as Uganda celebrates independence. And experts warn on massive drought after the anticipated El Nino rains. Welcome to Friday Briefing. Kenya's opposition coalition has once again restated their position that President Uhuru Kenyatta was directly involved in the procurement of witnesses against his deputy William Ruto. They claim that money for procuring witnesses came from the UK Centre, which was headed by one of Uhuru's close confidants. The opposition now says that they are willing to testify at the ICC in Ruto's defence. Michelle Ngele begins our bulletin with what is now turning to be a shouting contest between CORD and Jubilee.
Any question? I think that's
the war of words between Jubilee and CORD over the manner in which witnesses were procured in the ongoing trial of Deputy President William Ruto in the ICC continues, with both sides pointing fingers at the other. Opposition leaders have now given evidence that President Uhuru Kenyatta was at the center of procuring witnesses against his deputy, William Ruto. They say that President Uhuru Kenyatta cannot claim to be ignorant of Moses Kuria's actions because money for procuring and coaching of witnesses came from the UK Centre, which was headed by Uhuru Kenyatta's close confidant, former Member of Parliament David Murathe. Murathe is now the current vice chair in the Jubilee Party. Murathe, however, denied these allegations, saying Moses Kuria has never been an assistant for His Excellency the President or an employee of the UK Centre. ODM should tell Kenyans whether they want the DP freed or they want to complicate the case for their 2017 political campaigns. ODM leaders also purport that on July 21, 2008, the then Director of Intelligence, Michael Gishangi, named and implicated Ruto at the ICC, despite having evidence that would assist Ruto in his defense, evidence that he was instructed not to disclose by President Uhuru Kenyatta.
Uhuru sponsored a motion at the African Union seeking to have an international criminal court for Africa to replace the ICC. Uhuru even paid $1 million from Kenya to the AU to start the process. Ever since his case collapsed, Uhuru has not spoken on that issue again, and we have no option, therefore, to conclude that Uhuru Kenyatta did everything to get Ruto to Hague and has done nothing to get Ruto and Sang out of Hague.
I personally believed that William Ruto was actually innocent. When he was charged, I thought there was going to be some tangible evidence produced. But what happens is that the people who are giving evidence against him were all people from the PNU, from our opponents.
And what is the Jubilee government's take on these allegations?
Wale walifix ni huu. Haitakuwa na haja kwa sababu haisaidii deputy president kwa sababu kesi yake bado iko pale. Sisi tunataka watu waende wapeane ushahidi pale Hague, pahali ambaye hiyo kesi itakatiwa, ndio deputy president kesi yake ishe.
Michelle Ngele, KTN News.
The National Youth Service NYS Director General Nelson Givinji has today been grilled by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption officers over his alleged involvement in the 791 million Kenya shillings scandal at the NYS. But as KTN's Moremi Mwangi reports, Givinji is just the first high-ranking government official to appear before the EACC, and pressure is still mounting on Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru to also record a statement.
For 3 hours, National Youth Service Director General Nelson Givinji was holed up inside the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission headquarters, tasked to clean his name of the 791 million shillings scandal at the NYS. And as soon as the EACC officers were done with the grilling, Givinji once more maintained his innocence.
I have this folder. This folder basically has my notes. And he has a report that we're working with on corruption prevention. We've done a lot of work with the EACC, because I'm committed to total cleaning up of the place where I work. I like clean environment.
Givinji's summon is the first big move by the EACC since the Director of Public Prosecution complained that Givinji and Devolution Cabinet Secretary Anne Waiguru had not recorded any statements with the Directorate of Criminal Investigation who was handling the case.
The DCI confirms that there was a conspiracy to defraud NYS 695,400,000 in respect of committed disputed transactions.
Unakuja kusema ilipotea 791 sikujua. 791 million is a lot of money. Haiwezi potea kama shilingi 3 umeangusha njiani.
There's many transactions that go on in NYS, thousands of them. So the information you had was consistent with the facts.
The mega scam has inescapably earned Waiguru the title of the untouchable cabinet secretary, clinging to her position despite the incessant calls for her resignation. Championed by the opposition court over her alleged role in the scandal.
Alafu tunaambiwa ati ripoti ya uchunguzi inapelekewa suspect Waiguru.
Msitafutie wafanyakazi ya serikali ya Uhuru na Ruto makosa ati ndio mdiril development ifike 2017 tukose kupeana ile kazi.
In China ama nchi nyingine unatolewa kama wizara yako ilipoteza pesa aina hiyo. Wewe uonekana tena.
The 791 million shillings was siphoned out of public coffers through dubious payments made to contractors over the Kibra upgrade project by the NYS, a project which was a brainchild of Waiguru herself.
Uhuru hawezi kutuambia upande mmoja anajenga barabara lakini upande mmoja ufisadi unaendelea. It's a zero-sum game.
No, it's the usual. You know, it's an interview. We had an interview with them. They have information. They wanted me to shed light on whether that information is consistent with facts, as far as I know. It's still early days in the investigation, so we can't say much, because they'll come up with the findings and they'll be made public.
But even as Givinji exited the EACC headquarters, a cloud of uncertainty still hangs over Waiguru's fate, as the National Assembly has vowed to proceed with an impeachment motion against Waiguru, filed by Nandi Hills MP Alfred Keter, despite the existence of a court order barring Parliament from debating her ouster. Moremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
And that story by Moremi Mwangi now leads us to a big question tonight, where we're asking you, should NYS top officials vacate office to allow the EACC investigate the missing 791 million Kenya shillings? Should NYS top officials vacate office to allow EACC investigate the missing 791 million shillings. Do send us an SMS to 22155, or you can tweet us using the hashtag Friday Briefing, or at KTN Kenya, at KTN News, or my Twitter handle at Joy Doreen Bira. We'll be able to review some of that feedback. Let's now take a look at more news, and to neighboring Uganda, where President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has warned anyone, including the opposition, against fanning violence in the run-up to the 2016 general elections. Museveni described electoral violence as backward, saying those found engaging in activities to destabilize peace in the landlocked country will be dealt with. He spoke as he led the country in celebrating 53 years of independence in an occasion that was attended by Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto. KTN's Samogina reports.
Marking the 53rd Independence Day a year shy to Uganda's general election, President Museveni sent out a strong message to the opposition, warning them against disrupting the election. He assured Ugandans of peace and security.
The peace here will stay. I hear that some people are worried that some people can cause violence in the elections. Nobody will cause violence. Uganda is long past that type of nonsense.
The Ugandan strongman warned against perpetration of any form of violence during the election. Museveni says violence portrays a backward culture that Uganda surpassed long time ago.
If you try to go beyond local and you cause trouble, we know how to deal with you. We charge you in the court of law.
Kenya's Deputy President, who attended the Independence Day ceremony, relayed the message from President Uhuru Kenyatta. The keynote message was that of commitment to working with Uganda in key sectors such as oil, pipeline and infrastructure, among others.
We have confidence, Mr. President, in the agenda that you have for our region, and I want to commit to you and to the people of Uganda that the people of Kenya will work hand in hand with you and the great people of Uganda in the development and progress of East Africa.
The Kenyan Deputy President blasted the Ugandan opposition, saying they trooped to Kenya to seek a winning formula from poll losers.
They came and engaged people who have a problem with unity. They themselves cannot unite.
Samogina, KTN News.
As the onset of the El Nino rains begins, measures are being put in place to control anticipated environmental catastrophes that may result as the rains start to pour. Masi Kandia looks at some of those measures in the Rift Valley.
The El Nino rains are set to hit most parts of the country beginning this month, what has been attributed mostly to the global climate change caused mostly by the environmental degradation, majorly the cutting down of trees. Stakeholders in the North Rift have come together to try and put in measures to conserve forests in a bid to find long-term solutions to climate change.
We are encouraging those farmers now doing dairy to also begin using biogas so that we avoid the business of going to the forest to look for firewood. So there is a lot that put together under renewable energy and conservation and development that can be done. But our appeal now is all stakeholders involved in captured forests, and not just captured forests, all forests in Kenya. We want them to work together because we have to increase our forest cover.
In areas where we are doing harvest, we need to do harvesting sustainably. We want KFS, as much as they do harvesting, they should even do more planting. We want to go back to those days when Mo used to tell us, you cut one tree, you plant two. And I think where we are now, we even need to cut one and plant 100.
Kenya destroys at least 5 million trees daily, according to a study done by the Kenya Water Towers. This trend is worrying, with forest covers in some counties, like Siaya County, being as low as 0%. This reduction of forest cover affecting water levels in the rivers, negatively impacting water sources like dams.
Look at the budgets in our government today. The amount of money that has been put in tree planting vis-a-vis the trees that have actually grown, it will be a shame.
So because of the importance of this forest, we have decided that we need to come together, put our heads together.
The government has been encouraged to conserve the waters of El Nino, what could be useful later during the dry spell.
How and what is the advantage of El Nino to us, and therefore take that approach and make people know, because lack of that knowledge is where now we have forest covers that are less because people did not plant, and the common person down there does not understand the importance. So the replanting, people are just planting trees but they are not growing trees.
The steps to conserve smaller forests within the North Rift that form part of the Mau and Cherangani water towers. Residents from Kaptagat Forest, however, want legislations to include the community. Most of their income come from activities from the forest.
Those who will be affected has to be compensated. Because at the end of the day, while as they have small acreage of land, they want to put down their trees so that they conserve the water towers. At the end of the day, the same land they have been using it for agricultural purposes. How will they earn extra income? Whereas we want to see that we are reducing the use of wood fuel. What other issues or what other alternative sources of energy can the community be compensated with?
If all goes well, then the climate changes that affect the water patterns drastically might just be a thing of the past, one goal that would take effort and patience. Marcy Kandia, KTN, Eldoret, Uasin Gishu County.
Thanks, Marcy Kandia. Now, the United Nations has raised concern that the highly anticipated El Nino rains may have far-reaching economic and humanitarian effects on the East African nations. Through its Office for Coordination of Human Affairs, the UN says East Africa should expect not only floods but possibly drought in the long run, as the El Nino showers are likely to damage crops in the farms.
Since the weatherman broke the news to Kenyans that the skies will melt soon with a heavy downpour, likely to extend up to January next year, much of the concern of Kenyans has been about impending floods in the city and across the country. But now the United Nations Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has even worse news, not only for Kenyans but the larger population of the East African region, that the region may face a biting famine by the time the rains stop.
The concern is we've already seen the impacts of the drier conditions. That's affected cropping, it's affected people's livelihoods already. We've yet to see how much of an impact that'll have throughout the entire region, but we can already see in Ethiopia it's having a massive impact on food requirements to support those who've not been able to crop.
Already parts of Ethiopia are experiencing famine, and the United Nations agency now says this may get worse, as the El Nino is likely to put in disarray any farming activities in the region, since the pounding rains may erode away the fertile soils from the farming zones, even as they flood the lower plains.
We're expecting certainly some level of displacement, people having flooded homes and not being able to stay where they live. The impact on crops, of course, in low-lying areas will also be affected. You may lose crops not only by lack of rain but too much rain. And communicable disease.
And now, as governments in the region, including Kenya, invest most of their funds in repairing the drainage system, the United Nations Office warns that the governments here also need to chip in something on food security and agriculture. Muremi Mwangi, KTN News, Nairobi.
And we'll keep an eye for you on the El Nino rains. Now let's move on to devolution matters. Well, devolution was ushered in 3 years ago, albeit with its set of teething problems. Lots of gains have been made with this system of governance, especially in areas that had been previously marginalized. A conference held to look into devolution brought stakeholders from different sectors together. The key message from the main speakers emphasized the need for accountability and transparency from leaders, as well as the importance of public participation in decision-making processes.
The conference brought different key stakeholders together to discuss in depth the system of devolution, its gains and setbacks. 3 years on, devolution has brought services closer to the populace, services that would have otherwise been difficult to access. Of importance in easing service delivery, public participation is required for the purposes of accountability and transparency.
And I think the moment Kenyans get to know and appreciate and internalize that that power is yours, you have only donated it to others, I think we'll get somewhere.
The conference was facilitated by the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, the Jesuit Hakimani Center, the Catholic Justice and Peace Commission, Kenya Peace Network, and Mensin met in Missi. Corruption is a real cancer that is eating away at Kenyans' chance of prosperity.
The worst enemy as we have at the moment, and it is developing to bigger and bigger, is corruption. We thought at this time, it should be lessened, but it is growing.
Accountability is still an issue in most counties, and for this reason leaders have been asked to be more vigilant.
People are forgetting that all the monies used to come at the national level. Remember the county councils, the government never used to fund county councils. They used to fund themselves. But today now you are devolving money to where money used to come from. So you need to imagine, that is why you are having that freeze. So it's something we need to tell the governors, look, collect local revenue so that we start reducing what the government is doing so that it gets money to manage the other issues that are there.
It is the responsibility of Kenyans to put their leaders to task over key decisions made and for them to participate publicly in devolution matters. Karen Derry, KTN News.
Nairobi is all set for the 20th session of the CNN Multi-Choice Africa Journalist of the Year Awards that is tomorrow evening at the Kenyatta International Convention Center. 5 Kenyans are among 31 finalists in the prestigious competition. Among them is Standard newspaper writer Kiundu Aweru, and this year the competition received entries from 39 countries across the African continent, including French and Portuguese-speaking countries. The 31 finalists are from 15 countries. The event will be broadcast live on KTN News from 7 p.m. Saturday evening. And you are watching Friday Briefing here on KTN News. Just a reminder of our big question where we asked, should NYS top officials vacate office to allow EACC investigate the missing 791 million shillings? We ask that you tweet us on at KTN Kenya, at KTN News, and also using the hashtag Friday Briefing. Now I'll just read a few tweets before we can take a short break. Donna Acheng, you are saying yes, as Kenyan tradition puts it, we need to have answers plus a way forward on how to clean the mess. 791 million is a lot of money. And we also have one coming in from Stephen SVETS M1, who is saying yes, but it's been proven by history that stepping aside doesn't end up with prosecution of big fish. It's only the small fish that suffer. And also we have one coming in from Basil, who is saying Anwaiguru and Githinji must resign. Continued stay in office is a mockery in the fight against graft. And those are just some of the tweets that are coming through. Remember, you can also send us an SMS on 22155 and use the Twitter handle at KTN Kenya, at KTN News, or my Twitter handle at Joy Doreen Bira. We'll now take a short break. Still to come, our guest anchor, who is Jen Mukami, a health and wellness expert, who is here to tell us about what we need to do to eat healthy and stay healthy. Remember, a healthy mind is what you need to live longer. Please stay with us. And well, it's that time where we take a look at our guest anchor for today, and that is none other than a wellness expert, Jane Mukami. Some people know her as Kenyan, or Kenyan Fit Girl rather. I think that's the title that you actually are trying to phase out. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me,
It's an honor to have you.
It's good to be here.
A lot of people thought you were going to come here dressed in what we're seeing in the background over there.
Gym clothes.
Yes, gym clothes. But, well, you look very elegant tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right, so a lot of people have been wondering, what is a wellness expert? What do they do? Before we can even get into your background.
So I like to consider myself a wellness expert because when we think of health, we think about the body. There's fitness, which is also the condition of the body. But wellness is a well-rounded, I guess, word for being okay. And this does not only mean physical. It could be mental, psychological. It goes deeper than just physical, which is what most people want to know about, though.
So a lot of people tend to think that being fit means that you have to be trim, you have to be petite, you have to be slender. Do you want to tell us about that?
So before we begin, let me talk about health and fitness. So being healthy means your body is good. You have no disease. Being fit means your body looks a certain way, meaning you can get ripped, you have muscles. You could have muscles and still have cancer. So there's a difference between health and fitness. What I recommend most people to do is to be healthy, be free of disease, because you can look one way, but the inside is telling a different story. A good balance of the two also brings you back to that word, wellness.
Right. So your background is information technology. How did you even think about becoming a health and wellness expert? Like, did you get a vision from the Most High and said, you know what, it's time for me to switch careers now?
No. Yes, I began my IT career here in Kenya in 1999. I went to the US for education, computer science major. I've been in IT all my life, pretty much, and wellness or the whole fitness thing came in as a result of me trying to find myself when it comes to being healthy, losing weight. And as I was going down that rabbit hole for myself, I realized I enjoyed it, I enjoyed sharing it, hence why I took it up as my passion.
All right. Yes. And so you've done this for a span of about how many years?
So the whole health, fitness thing seriously began in 2010.
In 2010.
When I say seriously, I mean I committed. This is when I worked out, I watched what I ate. This is when I gave my heart and soul to it.
Is it a paying profession to be a health and wellness expert? Maybe, I don't think there's a lot of people who are into that, especially in Kenya.
Yes. There's definitely a need in Kenya. The market is huge, which leads me to this Facebook group I have on called 21 Days of Change. It's almost up to 50,000 women since January, which tells me we as Kenyans are ready to live healthier. I think there's already disease in the community, and I take or use this platform to try and educate the public, usually women, because I like dealing with my own kind. I like focusing on women because I'm a woman.
All right. So these 50,000 women, are they all Kenya, or they span across Africa, span across the world?
I think majority of them are Kenyans in Kenya, Kenyans abroad or elsewhere, and then we have women from other countries. As we look at our numbers, we realize there's a lot of women in African countries, Asia, Middle East. It's become a global group.
Okay. There are a lot of people who think that they don't even need to lose weight because in Africa we appreciate being healthy and having a bit of curves, you know, having all the curves in all the right places. So there are a lot of people who think, you know, there's no need for me to really have a detox. There's no need for me to go through the 21 days of eating what people are referring to as grass, which is maybe spinach or salads and all that.
So here's the thing about health, fitness, well-being, whatever you want to call it. It's like education. It's a solo journey. It's something you either decide you want to partake in or not, which leads me to the whole issue of self-image. I know there's been a lot of controversy in the media lately about, being fat, calling people names, this and that. But self-image is simply that. It's self. It starts with yourself. I might be obese, but I'm happy with myself. So I don't care if your opinion of me is, oh, you look this and that way. And we live in a community that's filled with judgment. And I constantly have to remind people that everything when it comes to health is a solo journey. Your mother, your parents, your friends can want you to be a certain way, but guess what? At the end of the day, it's your own soul, like personal decision. And people shouldn't, judge you or make you feel horrible for the decision you've made. Now, it's a problem when you feel as though you look a certain way and are complaining and not doing anything about it. But it goes down to self. If you're happy with yourself, regardless of what you look like, despite what society dictates they think a woman should look like, especially African women, man, we have it hard. Culturally, we're supposed to be, round, curvy. Then we step out into this century and beauty is defined by being a size 4, a size 6.
Yes.
And as women, we have to rise above all this society and community and online stereotypes and find comfort in ourselves. And I say this because I'm back in Kenya. I'm not the size 4 that I was in the US when I was bodybuilding. I'm not bodybuilding in Kenya. I'm the average mwananchi, but I'm still working out 4 times a day, 5-6 times a week and eating clean. But of course, I'm also eating a bit of chapati and mokimo. So, but does that mean I wake up in the morning and hate myself? No.
All right, so tell me something. In the United States, there's all this craze for fast foods because I think it's the most accessible. And back home here, there's plenty of fresh organic food. But then also the culture of lifestyle foods is picking up, and it's picking up pretty fast. And maybe it could explain why we are having increased cases of cancer, increased cases of hypertension or HBP, high blood pressure. But do you think that maybe we're taking this a little bit casually? The fact that we're having all these cases of cancer, cases of high blood pressure and hypertension?
Definitely. Yes, we have amazing, great, organic, cheap food, but we're getting westernized, so there's KFC, there's fast food, there's pizza. And what I realize is as we get older, we tend to overcompensate for the things we couldn't get when we were growing up. So we want to do delivery overnight or go eat out every night because maybe growing up our parents couldn't afford to take us out. And yes, it's obviously contributing to the bottom line of disease in Kenya. I think the last time I looked at the stats, over 70% people are obese, not obese but have diabetes, living with diabetes, and we are starting to be aware of it, but it's still kind of slow. I think diabetes is still considered an old people disease, but now we have 20-some-year-olds and 30-some-year-olds getting the disease. So the awareness is there, and we're slowly starting to move.
We're slowly starting to move.
Yes.
Now, I know you've actually mastered your craft as an IT guru, as a wellness and health expert, but it's now time for you to try and fit into my shoes, and that is where I now ask you to come over here with me so we can see if you can actually do this. It's time for you now to step in my shoes and read some news for us. So come with me. Let's see if you can actually do this. We've got what we call an auto cue over here, where we always sit and ask people to read news, because half the time we always want to see if you prefer to stand or you want to sit.
I can stand. I'll stand.
You can stand.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move this sit over here so we can be able to frame you, and the story you're going to read is one interesting one. Can you see? That's your camera right there, and the story you're going to read is your eyesight that good? Can you see that far? Yes, you can. All right, so here is your story, and I'm just going to let you take it away. You never know.
This might be my next career, so I need to nail it.
You might just ditch the wellness expertise. All right, so take it away. Introduce yourself and then read the story.
Okay. I'm Jane Mukami, and I'm here to read the 9 o'clock news with Joy, but I'm about to take her job. The Inspector General of the National Police Service, Joseph Boyne, says the police will continue with sustained operations against all criminals, including terrorists and cattle rustlers, without fear or favor. The Top Gun made the remarks during a Bravery Award ceremony by Manu Chandara Foundation for 28 police officers who showed courage, commitment, and selflessness to protect the public against security threats. Patrick Amino reports.
The 28 officers came from different police formations, including the GSU Reke Squad, the Flying Squad, Special Crimes Prevention Unit, and the Administration Police. 2 GSU officers, Bernard Kipkemoi Tonui and Diba Mochama, were recognized posthumously. Corporal Bernard Tonui was killed on April 2nd during the Garissa University College attack by Al-Shabaab terrorists. He was leading GSU Reke officers when a cornered terrorist detonated himself through a suicide bomb. Other officers from the squad who participated in the Garissa University operation were recognized. Diba Mochama was killed in July when a presidential security team was involved in an accident near Archers Post Junction in Nanyuki. He was among 20 officers from the GSU Reke Squad sent to Isiolo and Marsabit on security surveillance ahead of President Uhuru Kenyatta's visit to the bandit and cattle rustling prone areas. Administration Police Constable Eric Mugendi, who survived a bandit attack October last year in Capital that left 19 of his colleagues dead, was awarded for bravery.
You gave your whole, no matter the consequences, and that's why we are honoring one of us posthumously. And you did your job to the very best of your ability.
You are the role models for them. When they look at you, the young officer who's just coming out from Ganjo will say, yeah, that man, why did he get an award? I will make sure that I get an award.
Corporal Simon Kifani of the Eldoret-based Flying Squad unit was recognized for leading an operation that led to the recovery of 6 AK-47 rifles and about 700 bullets in burnt forest, Wasigishu County, in December last year. 2 administration police officers who battled Al-Shabaab militants who ambushed Mandera Governor Ali Roba's convoy in March this year were equally recognized. The vehicle Ali Roba was using had gone past the militia when his aides were ambushed.
So let's also be known for being courageous, for being committed, and for engaging in our jobs with that sense of selflessness that the majority of us are known for. Because it's not an easy job to confront some thug with an AK-47. Because 2 things are likely to happen. He goes or you go.
The police boss said the awards will go a long way in boosting the morale of officers. Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
All right. In the anchoring business, you're not allowed to check your phone.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe do they have etiquette lessons?
Anyway, so now we're looking into that camera, and that's how the business works. So, how do you think you fared?
First, let me start by saying it's harder than it looks. So much concentration and making sure the words you're reading mean something, so you can, know when to pause.
But I mean, you've done a lot of exercise. When you're doing exercise, you also have to concentrate.
You don't have to think as hard. It's harder than it looks, guys. Don't
So,
be
on
fooled.
a scale of 1 to 10, how do you think you fared?
I think I might have been a 7.
A 7? Actually, I think you did way better than 7. Actually, someone here is saying, you know what, I think she did so well. This is Abdi Kadir Salat who is saying, I think she did so well. And, K.E. Negro is saying 10 out of 10 for Mukami. She's awesome. And there you go. I'll actually give you a 9 out of 10.
Oh, you're being kind, really.
There was a lot of American accent in there, so that is where you
know what happens is I get used to mirroring what I think.
We were hearing
thing.
things like security, Okay, I guess we're getting used to it.
Do you
now.
have KTN or Anchor Bootcamp where I can go and learn how to speak a certain?
You actually you did very well. So we'll just forget about the accent and move on. So you're not just going to call for a break and say we'll be back with business, and also don't forget that there is the word master. Willis, the word master, who teaches us how to pronounce things. Actually, I think he might be a good one for you.
I'll make sure I schedule time with him.
All right, so call for the break. Right there.
So what do I say?
We'll take a short break now. We'll be back shortly. Right here.
We'll take a short break now, and we'll be back shortly.
Oh, exactly the words I said. All right. It's Friday briefing. We'll be back.
I suck. I totally suck.
Time for us now to take a look at business. That the government has embarked on a borrowing spree is not news to many Kenyans in the country. But just how much debt has the government acquired? And what does this mean for you as a Kenyan citizen? Well, Adelaide Changole tells us on this week's edition of Cause and Effect.
The government has been on an expansionary path over the last 2 years as it sought to jog the country and its badly dilapidated infrastructure into second world status. And while KRA has been ramping up collections to meet the demand for funds, the number, magnitude and speed with which the projects are supposed to be delivered has meant the state has turned ever more towards the debt market to plug its ravenous need for funds. And it would seem that this has come at a steep cost for Kenyans. According to a report from the Control of Budget, while the economy grew at just 5.5% in the year to June 2015, the country's debt stock has risen by an astounding 20.3% or 480 billion shillings in the same period to stand at 2.84 trillion shillings. This means the country's debt now accounts for a whopping 53.1% of the country's total GDP, up from 47% in September last year. Just to put this into context, assuming every one of the 44 million men, women and children in Kenya had to pay this debt today, you would be required to fork out approximately 64,546 shillings, up from 53,636 shillings in 2014. Interestingly, this debt stock is split perfectly in two, with external debt accounting for 50% of that debt, while domestic debt accounts for the other 50%. During the year, domestic debt rose 10.9% from 1.28 trillion shillings to 1.42 trillion shillings. However, foreign debt ballooned by 29.1% from 1.10 trillion shillings in June 2014 to 1.42 trillion as of June 2015, a fact that has made Kenya more susceptible to volatility in the foreign exchange markets, as witnessed this year with the Kenya shilling dollar pair.
The more we see currency volatility, it means that our debt paybacks in USD increases by its nature.
And because of this level of borrowing, the country's debt obligations count as the biggest ministry in Kenya after getting the single largest allocation of the 2.11 trillion shilling 2014-2015 budget. Kenya spent a staggering 393 billion shillings servicing both her internal and external loans during the year. And it has had an entire allocation to the county governments of 229 billion shillings, or the allocation to the Teacher Service Commission of 166 billion, or even the 270 billion shillings set aside for development expenditure by the government for the full year. Despite this, the National Treasury insists that the debt levels remain sustainable.
We are in a sustainable debt situation. The current account is also sustainable.
But with a budget deficit of 567 billion shillings for the 2015-2016 fiscal year and even more borrowing plans, this burden on servicing debt is likely to rise even further. Experts have called for all levels of government to rationalize their spending, to reduce expenditure, expand revenue streams and limit borrowing to ensure the debt levels remain sustainable.
Continue investing in infrastructure moderately. Continue to instill fiscal discipline, and if you really have to borrow on external markets, ensure that you get the timing right.
Adelaide Changole for Cause and Effect.
Kenya Airways has received the first tranche of the $200 million bridging loan from the Afrexim Bank as it begins implementing the recovery plan that will seek to reverse the fortunes on the beleaguered national carrier. Speaking today at the 39th Annual General Meeting, Kenya Airways said it had received $100 million, or about 10 billion shillings, that will be used to ease the cash crunch facing the firm. The airline is planning to draw down the second $100 million tranche in the next next few weeks. And going forward, KQ management said they will be implementing the laid-out turnaround strategy that is hinged on cost reduction, revenue growth, financial structure, productivity enhancement, and network improvement. During the AGM, Chairman Evanson Moniki retired after serving 10 years at the helm. The board is expected to name a new chairman in due course. Kenya Airways announced a historic loss of 26 billion shillings this year. And moving on to more business, Tuskys Supermarkets has set aside 154 million Kenya shillings that will be used to train 7,500 graduates on the retail business. The 5-year program will see 1,500 interns get 6 months training at the retailer every year, with 60% of those who complete the program guaranteed of being absorbed into the Tuskys workforce. Tuskys says the initiative was brought about by a lack of adequately trained graduates in the country. Successful candidates will be selected from an online portal on Tuskys website. First priority will be given to those from underprivileged families across Kenya. Tuskys has 58 stores in Kenya and Uganda, with plans to open an additional 4 stores by end of this year.
In Kenya, in supermarkets, the aim of this program is to connect the academic and practical part of it. We are giving them chance to join the organization after the training.
We are on the right track. We have been praised so much for the talent and the work ethic our young people have been able to portray. We really want to make sure that you don't let us down in making sure that you continue to work as hard as you've always been.
The Kenya shilling has this week gained some strength against the US dollar. Let's now take a look at how it fared throughout the day and also a look at the money markets. And it's that time where we get to find out the right pronunciation of words in English language. And we're now joined by Willis the Word Master on Twitter. He can be found on @WillisOchieng1. Willis, thank you so much for joining us. How has your week been?
Joy, the week has been a wonderful one for me because almost all that I had intended to do, in fact, became a success.
Well, let's begin our segment this moment and take a look at the word on the street. This one was a little bit difficult for people to pronounce, but just take a look.
Hebitom. Hebitom.
Hepitom. Hepitom. Evitom. 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 Epitom. 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 Epitom.
Ebitom. Ebitom. Ebitom.
Pisare. Pisare. Baiza. Baizare. Baizare.
Bizarre. Bizarre. Ay!
Biza. Bisale. 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 Bizarre. Bizarre.
Bizarre. Bizarre.
So Willis, what do I say? Bizarre, epitome. Now that is where you come in and give us the right pronunciation for those words, because I really don't want to sound like that was funny, but it was funny for people to say bizarre.
Joy, what we must admit is that the two words are tricky. In the first place, we say epitome or epitome, not epitome, epitome, and all that. This reminds me of the word hyperbole. Most people say hyperbole, but the correct pronunciation of that word is hyperbole. So the first word on the street is epitome or epitome. The second one is bizarre. Bizarre, a bizarre incident, not bizarre, binzari, and all that. Bizarre.
It's bizarre and epitome or epitome.
Yes.
All right. Let's now take a look at some other words. There are words that are pronounced a little bit funny, and one of those words is it hysteria, hysteria?
You say hysteria, hysteria, not terrier, hysteria. Just like we say criteria, not criteria, no, criteria. Criteria, not criteria. Some even say criteria, which is wrong. So, hysteria, criteria.
And then there is another one here. Some people tend to say precarious, some tend to say precarious, some say precarious. What is the right pronunciation?
The word is actually pronounced as precarious, precarious, carriers, not carriers.
Precarious.
Precarious. Yes.
All right, and now we'll move on to yet another interesting one that I'm sure people, is it laureate? Is it laureate? Is it, what exactly is that word that people tend to pronounce when they are talking about Nobel Peace Prize winners?
We usually find a problem with some of us saying lao, lao. But that A and U in the first syllable, Joy, takes the sound O. So you say lo, laureate, laureate, not laureate, laureate. Just like lounge,
laureate.
Not lounge, lounge. Yes.
All right, so it's laureate.
Laureate.
All right, and of course there's that other word that I'm sure everybody uses every time they are talking about the National Assembly. They always tend to mispronounce this word because of the way maybe it's written. And someone called Ronnie Karanja in Nairobi is asking how you pronounce, is it parliament, is it parliament, is it parliament? What exactly is that pronunciation, Willis?
Joy, you've talked of what we see and sometimes misleads some of us into mispronouncing certain English words. You are reminding me about one man called Michael Opere of Mbale. He was also asking me, do we say rendezvous, rendezvous, or what? But I know Michael Opere knows now that we say rendezvous or rendezvous, not rendezvous, rendezvous. So the word in question in this case is parliament, not parliament. Lia, no, that I is silent. Parliament. And we also say honorable, not honorable,
yes,
not honorable.
All right, so it's parliament, and there's no acceptable word like parliament.
Palia, no, you just say la, lament, parliament.
All right, so you always have a surprise word for us, and I cannot read your mind. What is that surprise word you have for us today?
Joy, the way you put it. And you know, one thing your English or your good command of English really impresses me whenever I talk to you. Now, the surprise word for tonight, Joy, is what many people pronounce as confront. Confront. We don't have front. That letter O takes the mid-central vowel sound confront, to confront, just like in the word front. We also say in front and also affront, affront, that crime, affront, not affront. So that one we should always be aware of that, and in most cases I know many people would wonder confront, but that is the correct pronunciation, Joy.
Confront, not confront, not in front, it's in front. Alright,
Joy, maybe if you are getting me, you are getting me, we have a small problem of communication. I think it was a bit of a technical problem, but Joy, we have here two words. We have core, that is the one above, or the upper one, core, diplomatic corps. But some people say diplomatic corps, which is wrong. Diplomatic corps, not corpse. Corpse is a dead body. That is when we are talking about the word which is below. So there we say corpse. And for those who say diplomatic corpse, it may be a bit, interesting, because I don't think we have a body or a dead body that is diplomatic. So the one we mistake to be diplomatic corpse is core. That is the upper one. Core. Otherwise, that is enough for me for tonight, Joy.
Wow, Willis, I can say I'm always educated by your lessons here on Mind Your Language. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very fantastic weekend. Thanks a lot, Willis. All right, and that is Willis the Word Master. You can find him on Twitter in case you have any other questions in regard to pronunciation of words. It's at Ochieng1, at Willis Ochieng1, and he'll be very willing to answer all those questions that you have. Well, I'll take yet another break, but sports is coming up, so do stay with us. And we also have Jane Mukami still with us here in studio, and I'm seeing a lot of tweets coming through about her and just how you're giving her 15 out of 10. Where does that leave me? I mean, that means I'm replaceable. But anyway, let's take a break. We'll be back shortly.
Good evening, it is time for KTN Sports, and my name is Moses Wahesi. Eldoret town, popularly known as the City of Champions, will host 16 teams from tomorrow, 4 teams from Uganda and Tanzania, and that's at the second edition of the Chabarbar Sevens tournament at the Eldoret Sports Club. Host and defending champions Eldoret IFC will need to be at the best to stop Kenya Harlequins, Egerton University, Impala Academy, Nakuru IFC second tier team, and the 8 boys quiz in contention. Kampala-based Corps Rugby and Mbali Rugby of Uganda, alongside with the Arusha Rugby Academy and Arusha Rhinos, will lend a showpiece, however, an international color. And of course, the Chabarbars is sponsored by, among others, a Standard Group through the Nairobian newspaper. Shifting gears, the winners and the top performance in the just concluded Nairobi Champions Cup competition were featured in a ceremony today. Among the top winners, Christabella from Beijing Raiders was awarded the best goalkeeper, while Embakasi's Janet Mora walked away with the top scorers trophy.
After a 4-month competition that included 116 teams from Nairobi County, it was time for the best performers to be feted. In the ladies category, Christabel Matisa from Beijing Raiders was awarded the best goalkeeper, while Embakasi's Janet Mora walked away with the top scorers trophy. Mora scored 7 goals in 7 matches. Esther Mwanzia of Golden Angels was the overall best player. The 3 were given 25,000 shillings each. Embakasi South finished second in the competition and were awarded a check of 100,000 shillings, while Golden Angels, who emerged the winners, walked away with 250,000 shillings.
Mchezaji wa Kenya ule anacheza top gear football atakuwa na minimum wage, atakuwa na ile pesa lazima alipwe akicheza kwa ligi fulani.
In men's category, Geoffrey Atiel Owino was named the best goalkeeper after conceding only 2 goals in the whole competition. Geoffrey went ahead and thanked his teammates and the organizers. Abdallah Ali and George Otieno scooped the top scorer and best player awards respectively. Abdullah Ahmed, KTN Sports.
Thank you, Abdullah, for that piece. And now I know that many will agree that Zumba has gained popularity over the year in the country, with a number of people turning to it so as to get fit. The dance and fitness routine, which originated in Colombia, has seen millions take part in it. So, is Zumba really a sport, or is it just a dance?
The term Zumba is not an unfamiliar term when it comes to fitness and workout. Zumba is a dance routine that helps people in their workout, and it first originated in Colombia under Beto Perez. We sought to find out if Zumba is really a dance routine or it's a sport.
Zumba has seen a spiral growth in the country since its introduction. The fitness routine has quickly grown to one of the most popular group exercises on the planet, with over an estimated 12 million people taking part in it. The dance routine, which has its root in Colombia, has left many wondering whether Zumba is a dance or can it be considered as a sport.
It cannot be compared to sport because there are no two parties involved here at one, because normally we go to a class where there is an instructor who normally guides you on what to do. Unlike in the sports where you have maybe like in football where there are two parties, there is a team A and team B who are competing maybe for one common goal, maybe to score.
For an activity to be considered as a sport, it must have a competition, and there must be a governing body in which there should be physical activity, and there must be an institution.
Others come to the Zumba class for maybe stress relief, others come to the Zumba class for workout, others come to the Zumba class to interact with their friends, you know. So it depends with the individual goals. So
zoezi ilikuwa ukifikiria kwenda zoezi unafikiria ni kitu ngumu sana, lakini kwa saa hii Zumba imerahisisha hiyo mentally.
Zumba, despite not being a sport, however, has numerous advantages to an individual and sportsman as well.
In Zumba, there is also endurance, of which it's very much relevant to those people who maybe who do the sport like football.
Mtu yote anaweza fanya Zumba, whether uko kwa sports, whether hauko kwa sports, waweza fanya Zumba kwa sababu Zumba ni mazoezi.
With more people craving to keep fit, the roots of the dance routine will continue to spread across the country. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports.
In association with Bulletin.
No longer, because I bought Mortin Doom Power Guard, which kills 100% mosquitoes. Mortin Doom Power Guard kills 100% mosquitoes.
And you're watching Friday Briefing on The Big Question. Tonight we asked, do you think that NYS top officials should step aside to allow the EACC investigate the missing 791 million Kenya shillings? And we're now just going to review some of that feedback, and we're going to take a look at what Seth Kibet is saying. It's now a must that Waiguru resigns, not the scapegoats. Kenyans are not that stupid. And we also have one coming in from Adela Riga, who is saying, just from the word go, but I wonder why EACC has to wait for Kenyans on Twitter to shout before they act. And one final one here, coming in from Elijah, who is saying, we know someone's password was used and we are still beating around the bush. with shady lists and questions. There's some of the bitter feedback coming in from you in regard to a big question tonight. But let's not forget we had a guest anchor on the show today, Jane Mukami, who is a wellness expert. Jane, before we even wind up, what is that message that you want everybody to get in their heads regarding healthy living and wellness?
I think the most important thing, and the fact is that we might all not want to work out, but there's one thing we all do. We all eat. So it all goes back to nutrition. It is 80% nutrition, 20% everything else. So I greatly encourage everybody to be more mindful of what they're eating. Kick out the bad habits, the addictions to coffee, tea, sugar, cakes, all those kinds of things. If you need to do a form of detox, such as my 10-day detox program that's available, get that to jumpstart cleansing your body and eating right. If you never work out in your life, honestly, it's not a big deal. But what you eat is what dictates how healthy you are.
What you eat. So what we put in our bodies is what dictates also what kind of diseases we are going to have.
Most of the times, yes, 100%. It's the food that we're eating that's causing the disease. It's exacerbating our cells and causing cancer and all those kinds of things. It's from what we put in the bodies.
All right. And we've come to the end of the show. I'd like to say thank you to everybody who contributed to the show, the team behind Friday Briefing, to Willis Oching, the word master. Thank you so much for educating us on how to pronounce those words. Now, I'm giving you a chance to redeem yourself. Why don't you wind up the show in some very good Kenyan English? All right, that's the camera over there.
We've come to the end of our show. Thank you for watching and see you next Friday. I just might be here again. Good night.